This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com, back for another retro news story review or Wrestling Observer review. But I have a lot of personal knowledge on this as well, since I did know Lanny Poffo very well. He worked for Great North Wrestling from 2007 to 2012, and actually invested in some events as well, believe it or not, as cheap as he was. But we always hear about his WCW, supposedly, according to him, 6-year contract, where he doesn't disclose the amount, but according to Eric Bischoff, the Macho Man's contract, the first 3 years, was paid for by Slim Jim. And we know Slim Jim just recently gave WWE the largest sponsorship they've ever had for something. I believe it was for something related to SummerSlam. So whatever Slim Jim paid WCW, that was part of Macho Man's deal. So that covered Macho Man's full pay. So whatever Lanny got paid, whether it's 150,000, 300,000 a year, who knows what the hell it was, they got Macho Man for free. And the only reason he was hired, everyone admits this, was because he was Macho Man's brother. Now, I'm not saying he's not talented. He's a very good seller. He was an innovator, but for whatever reason, he also is lazy. He was lazy in some ways. And I guess Macho Man never really told him about this, because according to Eric Bischoff, after the first part of the contract expired, there wasn't going to be as much of a Slim Jim money coming for the second part. So Macho Man, out of being a loving brother, let part of his contract go to keeping Lanny under contract for Lanny's contract renewal. And what's interesting is I watched a few interviews of Lanny talking about it, and he discusses that he was on human growth hormone during the period of time that he was to play Gorgeous George. And he's admitted before, even in an interview with me, that he took steroids during the time he was feuding with Hulk Hogan when he got his big WWE push. Randy Savage, who gained a massive amount of weight before he passed, he has one of the signs of human growth hormone. I mean, Lex Luger has it too, and Lex Luger's admitted to taking it. It's the enlarged forehead. So you can only imagine Lanny may have got it from him. I just find it interesting that human growth hormone causes heart issues, and his parents both lived to be very old. Their parents lived to be very old, and both Lanny and Macho Man died fairly young. So maybe that was a contributing factor. Anyways, what I found interesting in a Wrestling Observer, I was looking through the October 20th, 97 issue for something else, and apparently on October 14th, 1997, and I'll even paste it here to put it up on the screen, Lanny Poffo had a match on WCW Saturday night. It was a taping in Fort Myers, Florida, before 2,465 pounds. He beat L.A. Now, I don't know if that's La Parca. I don't know if it's a jobber named L.A. or what, but it's interesting. Here he's not listed as Gorgeous George. So maybe by this time they'd given up on the Gorgeous George gimmick, because he was supposed to do the Gorgeous George gimmick, which he said he didn't like because he claimed his hair was falling out from having to dye it. And he claimed they wanted him to wear blue contact lenses, which he also didn't like. So it's interesting that he did actually have at least one match for WCW. If anyone can find it on video, I would love to see it. It was interesting to know, and I will let me play this clip of Macho Man's ex-girlfriend, the other Gorgeous George. Macho Man ended up giving the gorgeous name George name to her. And she managed Macho Man in WCW briefly. Let's play this clip a bit, and then I'll come on again. This was from an interview I did with her numerous years ago.
You ever have much contact with his brother? I'm sure he probably was.
I've only actually been in the same room with him like 4 times my entire life, and it's kind of funny right now, like how Lanny's all in the spotlight after he passed because.
And the thing that bothered me about it was, I don't know if Randy ever told you this, but he didn't want to be in the WWE Hall of Fame pretty adamantly, apparently. And then obviously something happened where they likely gave Lanny some money, and Lanny gave his blessing for Randy to go in there.
While he's getting put over on his Hall of Fame day or whatever, you know what I mean? And I don't know, that was kind of like Lanny's time to shine. Because I see him now at some of the signings, and I'm just thinking to myself, there was actually a time, because he was getting a check from the WCW, actually, that Randy in his contract was making sure that Lanny was getting paid.
Right.
But Lanny was supposed to always be ready to wrestle. And when Randy would go over there, Lanny's out of shape. He doesn't care. And then Randy's like, I'm getting you a check, and you can't even go to the gym.
Wasn't he supposed to be Gorgeous George, and you ended up being Gorgeous George?
Well, what it was is he didn't get over with the name. And then when me and Randy were breaking up, it was kind of like Randy was dangling that carrot over my head. And I was just like, well, you know what? I don't need your Gorgeous George. I'll just change my name legally to George. And I did.
Okay.
So now I can be George all I want. Right. And Lanny can keep the Gorgeous George name and put it in a vault and save it so no one can do anything with it, including him.
What's interesting about that is WWE at one point was going to do a movie about Gorgeous George and bought the rights to the Gorgeous George name. So what the other Gorgeous George, who basically says in there when her and Lanny broke up, when Gorgeous George, the manager, and Randy broke up, these two, Randy took back the rights to the Gorgeous George name, which he had purchased over the years. And then I guess Lanny inherited the rights to the Gorgeous George name when Randy died. So Lanny must have sold the Gorgeous George name to WWE. And in the very last signing Lanny did, just like the night or maybe 2 nights before his death, he said, I don't know about Ted DiBiase, but I'm the $1 million man. So he definitely, between whatever inheritance he got from Randy, his WCW money, his 8 years in WWE, I assume, who knows where the royalties go. I don't know what if there was a prenup with Randy's second wife that he married just before he passed or what. So I don't know what the divisions of the money was, but Lanny clearly says in this he was a very rich man when he passed, so he was living in Ecuador in the years before he died. And in this same interview, he made a joke that the women in Ecuador don't keep him in the friend zone. And then he said, how do you tell an old man in the dark? And the punchline is it's not hard. So who knows? Maybe he was consuming Viagra, which will affect the heart as well. Anyways, God bless Lanny. I'm glad that I'm glad he was a millionaire. Saved his money well. I'm going to guess his daughter probably inherited that. So God bless her. And you know what, Lanny always undersold. He was lazy. Like when he would do independent shows, he wouldn't bring his Genius outfit. The first independent show he ever did for me, he wrestled in bare feet. He didn't even wear boots. He wouldn't try very hard a lot of the times. Once we became better friends, he would put more effort into stuff, and in the ones where he was investing money, he put in a greater investment. But I think Lanny undersold himself. If he had tried harder in WCW, and he mentioned also in another interview that he never called WCW. He waited for them to call him, so he didn't put much of an effort in, probably because if he's just getting a check, he just wants to keep his mouth shut. But he was talented. His match against Hulk Hogan was very good. He's great at selling. That angle that him and I did in the dressing room, people believed was real for years. He's a great seller. So he undersold himself. And as far as the Hall of Fame goes, I'll just say this one last time. The reason Randy didn't want to go into the Hall of Fame was because he wanted Randy, Lanny, and Angelo Poffo to be inducted as a family. And he wanted Lanny, like he wanted to hold off for that because he felt the Von Erichs, because all the Von Erichs were inducted as a family, including, I believe, Chris and Mike. Someone can correct me that in the comments. And as far as WWE careers, Lanny was in WWE longer even than Kerry. Kevin may have had a few WWE matches. David, of course, was never in WWE, so I think Lanny should have held out. But yeah, R.I.P. Richie. I'm doing good. But yeah, I popped when I read that Lanny actually wrestled for WCW, because we drove a lot together, and he never mentioned to me that he ever actually had matches. So there's a record. He had at least one WCW match. WCW Saturday night, may have been a dark match. It was the first match of the night. Fort Myers, Florida. God, I miss WCW Saturday night. Not the very end of it, but that show was a great show at various points.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please